Ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be back after a 2-week holiday break here. I would wish you a happy new year, but I am taping here on January 5th, and the Larry David, the comedian and former Seinfeld writer, rule of thumb, you don't wish anybody a happy new year after January 3rd. But I hope you had a good holiday season. I hope you did have a good New Year's Day, and I am just glad to be back into it. It is just going to be me today because, in the words of the rock band Disturbed, Bob is down with the sickness. And so he's not feeling too well. So he's getting better. He's getting nobody worry. He's slowly getting back to his normal self. But there's all kinds of stuff going around there. I have a little bit of throat phlegm. I don't mean to paint a picture for you. So if I sound a little off, that's what it is. But nothing hurts. I feel great. We have a lot to talk about because a lot happened this past 2 weeks. With all our teams here. But yeah, this is 10 Cent Beer Night, the official sports show of FifthDimensionRadio.com here in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Every Wednesday, now back to it, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am Seth here. And so, like I said, a lot happened this past 2 weeks with our teams and whatnot. And we're going to obviously... Actually, before I forget, because we have so much to talk about, I do want to mention real quick, we are doing some live basketball games here at FifthDimensionRadio.com before I get right to it. Tomorrow's game, by the time you hear it, we are taping on January 5th for January 7th. So, by the time you hear this, the game will be done. But tomorrow's game will be Cuyahoga Falls at Talmadge. For next week, since, so it's not too, so let listeners know, so it's not too late. So they can prepare to hear it. It's we got, who is this here? Like
they changed it. It's not Falls.
No, it's Walsh Jesuit. But who's the other school? I got VASJ. I've never heard. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're at Walsh Jesuit though next week on January 13th.
The game this week though, it's not against Falls.
Oh, it's not against Falls.
I
Yeah.
forget who it is.
Okay, apologies. By the time you hear this, it'll be too late anyway. But I guess Cuyahoga Falls and Talmadge is not going to be broadcasted tomorrow. It's going to be another matchup there. But they're going to have the Walsh Jesuit game next week. And I apologize to the away school. I don't know who this is. I'm trying to figure out. We'll look it up. We'll call Bob. we'll text Bob on break and figure out. But we do have a game every Tuesday until February 20th. Fifth Dimension Radio will be hosting a high school basketball game and broadcasting. Okay, now to the other things, all right? As you're aware, we are taping right now on Black Monday. For those that don't know what Black Monday is, that is the day in the NFL where the teams that did not do so hot fire coaches and or GMs, okay? And they make some moves. So, just going to go right to the point here at 10 a.m. this morning. I'm filming here at 1:24 in the afternoon right now. At 10 a.m. this morning, Cleveland Browns have fired Kevin Stefanski after 6 seasons and 2 Coach of the Year awards. Weird time in Cleveland before we get really into it. We had all 3 major sports teams with Coaches of the Year awards. Stefanski won 2, Stephen Vogt of the Guardians won 2 in a row, and Kenny Atkinson won a year ago. And so it sounded on paper like Cleveland was set with coaches for a while, and here we go again, Real quick, the other coaches that were excused from their jobs, within the past 24 hours, the first one was Raheem Morris of the Atlanta Falcons, and that one, it was interesting because he didn't do a bad job. Kent Roosevelt is who's going to be the January 6th, the game we're broadcasting tomorrow there. So there you go. Anyway, Morris did not do it bad. They fell like a game away from making the playoffs, and this was like his second season. Okay, no clue. I guess because they had a hot start to the season, an overall successful first half, I should say. In their second half, they didn't, and it's always about how you end, not how you begin. I guess they felt that a move needed to be made, and they have excused him. So, with that being said, so the Atlanta Falcons will be once again for the second time in the past 3 years looking for a new head coach there. Um, give you the updated ones here. Let me see. Oh, sorry, that wrong list there. Coach who has been fired there. After Raheem Morris, Kevin Stefanski was the second coach that was fired. If you want to be technical, I'm looking at the fire list. I pulled this up here on SB Nation. Brian Callahan of the Tennessee Titans was technically the first guy fired. He was fired 4 games in the season, 5 weeks, excuse me, and they decided to move on from him. Then Brian Daboll of the New York Giants was fired. Then Raheem Morris last night. Kevin Stefanski this morning. And it had to do, we'll get into that in a sec because we are Browns fans and we do talk about the Browns on here, so we'll get more in detail there. Pete Carroll of the Las Vegas Raiders was fired hours after Stefanski was. And I think Carroll's going to be done for good for his career. He's an older guy. I just don't see, I'm not trying to discriminate either, but, I mean, he's in his late 70s, and again, when Pete Carroll signed with the Raiders, it was only a 3-year deal, and with the understanding that it wasn't going to be long-term. He was going to come in and try to fix things, and unfortunately, they did not have a great season. Actually, they had the worst season than anybody. They had the first overall pick, so I think the quarterback from Indiana is going there, so they move on from him. This one was surprising, this latest firing here, okay, for coaches. Jonathan Gannon of the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland kid, okay? And yes, that might be relevant to the Browns here. This is why he did lose his last 9 games of the season, so you think, whoa, that's horrible. You know, why would they keep him? Arizona, this was weird. You know, beginning of the season, people can remember I said Arizona was one of the dark horse teams of the year. I really liked what they had. They were 8-9 last year. I thought that they were going to come out and play much better than they did. Like, the first month of the season, they looked solid. They really, really did. They had a lot of injuries and just they couldn't get things going. And I do question if they had enough on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball was not terrible by any means, but defense, it was like, they could have had a little more. And Gannon's a defensive guy. Remember, this is the guy who replaced when Doug Peterson was fired from the Eagles, okay? He leaves. Jim Schwartz, who's been the Browns D coordinator for the past 3 years, he was with the Eagles there. So that staff leaves, and then Nick Sirianni comes in. Gannon was hired to be the D coordinator that replaced Schwartz. They go to the Super Bowl. That's the one they lost against the Chiefs. And then Gannon and, not Sirianni, the Colts guy, I'd have to look. Give me a sec. I'll look it up here. But they go on and take head coach jobs. So Gannon left the Eagles for the Cardinals there because of his, again, great defensive mind and whatnot. And I'm wondering if that was more of a front office thing with the Cardinals. And again, I don't know. He could have lost the locker room for all I know. I don't pay attention to the Cardinals like that. But that is a guy. If we're talking about the defensive side of the ball, a local kid, it might be an idea that comes up. Be prepared for that, and we'll get to there in a sec. Shane Steichen, that's who was the other coordinator for the Eagles that left for a head coach job there. So that's the update of coaches that have been fired. There's been some GMs that were fired too. The GM vacancies. Atlanta Falcons did fire Terry Fontenot after the same time that they fired Raheem Morris, okay? And I wonder if Fontenot was on the hot seat the minute he drafted Michael Penix, who, for the record, I do like. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he has what it takes in this league. But they just signed Kirk Cousins to this massive deal. And then he goes and drafts a quarterback with the first round, and in front of all the cameras, the owner came down and wanted an explanation. Okay, that was kind of a bad look. That was 2 drafts ago. That wasn't this past draft. And then Miami Dolphins have a GM vacancy with Chris Greer no longer with the team. And Greer, by the way, has talked to the Browns. I guess Browns are looking for an executive to work with Barry. They haven't talked about this. Let me rephrase that. They haven't talked about this today because of the Stefanski firing and everything, the craziness that's going on. But the Browns, while we were on break, were talking to former GMs as a potential executive role to help out on the, especially the offensive side of the ball, since they did retain Andrew Berry, and Berry has done very well with the cap, with getting draft capital and drafting defensive players. He's been lights A+ in drafting defensive players. The offensive players, though, I think needs some work. Yes, he did draft Judkins and Harold Fannin Jr., but there was also some guys, you're not sure. Like, another example is he thought Dylan Gabriel was the second best quarterback of this past draft. All right? Yes, they draft Shedeur. Who drafted Shedeur? Was it Haslam? Was it Barry? It doesn't matter. Shedeur comes out and plays a little better, all right? He does turn over the ball a little more, but he moved the ball downfield better, and he made more electric plays. And bottom line is, he helped beat the Steelers and Bengals at the end of the season. He made some absolute great plays to make that happen, and that's a big deal within itself there. I do have a quick update for you. CBS was showing this report from the Browns. Defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz and maybe Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator of the Browns, will be considered for and maybe interviewed here to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. So they might look in-house and promote, but we'll see what happens. As far as other names, it's going to be another day or two before we hear actual names. I've heard the rumors and everything. So let's get to it. First, let's talk about the end of the season real quick. I know we only have so much time left in this first segment, and because again we got a lot to talk about. First, I did not think they were going to take 2 out of 3 of the last 3 games. When we left Fifth Dimension here for the holidays, I thought they were going to lose all 3 games, maybe win one of them. They ended up beating the Steelers and the Bengals, which was great. They kept it close. They should have beat the Bills. And this is why this is important. Other than, shoulda, woulda, coulda. That is the main reason when people ask, well, why did they fire Kevin Stefanski? It sounds like he overall did well with the players. Did he have enough to work with? There's all these questions. Let's just not overthink it for a second and use logic, okay? In the NFL, it's about wins and losses, all right? There was 2 seasons there he won 11 games. That's when his morale, the team morale, the fan morale was at the highest, okay? Yeah, because they made the playoffs and everything, okay? When we dissect Kevin Stefanski's time with the Browns, which was, not the worst. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great either, because here's the reality. Yeah, they made the playoffs twice. They went 1-2. Mind you, the one win, he wasn't on the sidelines. He had COVID. He was in his basement at home watching the game while his team dominated. Which that was one of the best. That was the best Browns win since they came back in '99. Okay, so under his era, there was at least that success there. Okay, on top of that, just looking at this season. Okay, the season before the 3-win season is in the past. I will say this season, last season when last season ended, it was like this was a nightmare. I don't know how I'm going to mentally bounce back and get excited for another Browns season. Ending this season, putting the firing aside, there's a lot to like going into the next one. There was a lot of pluses. Here's where the negatives come in, and the negatives were the reason he got fired. He won 5 games, okay? He won the last 2, which were division games. He upsetted Green Bay, which was a playoff team. He beat the Dolphins, which he was favored to win, and he beat the Raiders, who was the worst team in the league this year, okay? There were 5 or 6 games he coulda, shoulda won and didn't. He wins those games. That's a 10-11 game winning season, and ladies and gentlemen, they win the division. Think about it. They pretty much win the division at that point. If they win, and I'm talking about, they lost to the Titans, who were terrible. Shedeur tore up that defense, and they still lost. Okay? The Jets, who I don't know, did the Jets get an interception yesterday? I'm going to check this out because the Jets did not get a defensive interception yesterday. They are the first team since they started recording stats in 1933 to not record an interception. Let me see here. No, Mitch Trubisky did not throw an interception. He had 4 touchdowns yesterday. The kid out of Mentor, Ohio. No interceptions. Jets are the first team in league history since 1933 to not have an interception, and they had a defensive-minded coach. Okay, they lost to the Vikings. They had the lead for most of that. Dylan Gabriel overall played well that game. Should have won that one. Okay, they should have finished the Bills off. I thought they were going to lose by 30 when I saw that coming up. When I saw that game, I said they're going to lose. It's going to be. They almost won it. They should have won it, And so I named you 4 there. I'll pull up the schedule here. Because they should have beat the Bengals. There was the kicker Schmidt made up for that one by hitting the game winner yesterday. By the way, we're talking about this firing. Congrats to Myles Garrett, the new sack leader. That's incredible. And before anybody says, well, he had an extra game, it took TJ Watt 12 games. Look how many snaps it took Myles Garrett to get there. Almost 70 less than Strahan and 100 less than Watt. Don't feed me the BS. And the league increased the games. That was the league's decision. There's no asterisks. He's the new sack leader. Get over it. Let me see here. But that's what it comes down to. And last year, I'm not going to pull up last year's schedule, but last year it was similar where they won 3 games, but there was a couple games they should have definitely won, and they didn't, okay? So they lost to the Bengals by 1 in week 1. Week 2 was a travesty. Forget that one. They got destroyed by the Lions, who, by the way, did not make the playoffs this year. The Vikings game they should have won. They lost by 4 over in London, and they did not make the playoffs this year. They lost to the Steelers at Pittsburgh. That one was not a good one. They beat up the Dolphins. They got beat up by the New England. New England was great this year. But again, that's where I think where things were falling apart for Stefanski. Because when you had Mike Vrabel, who was with the Browns front office last year, head coach now for the Patriots, and he called Stefanski's play calling predictable. That's where there was a problem. Because now it's like, okay, you can't even fool a guy that was with you last year. He told the defense exactly what you were going to do, and once they shut down your gimmick plays, you were done. Then eventually, then they lose to the Jets. That one's the one they should have won. They should have beat Baltimore at home. That one slipped through their fingers. That was on them. Shedeur was not prepared. And then I'll give the Niners their win. They played very well. That was a tough one. They lost to the Titans. That was a bad one. They got destroyed by the Bears. So we have named at least 5 games they should have won. And that's what it came down to. We got to take a break. When we come back, we will talk more about this. Then we'll talk about the Cavaliers and how things are going a little bit better for the Cavs since we last talked. We'll talk about that and more. Stay tuned. All right, back here, 10 Cent Bear Night, our second segment, and our first one of 2026. So we're looking forward to a lot of great memories here. We do got to finish to talk about the whole Kevin Stefanski and Cleveland Browns debacle there, as Kevin Stefanski is out after 6 years as the Cleveland Browns head coach, and I got a lot more thoughts on it. We'll be spending a lot of this, about at least half of the segment here, talking about that, because there's a lot that's going into this, and it is going to really decide the future, the immediate future of the Cleveland Browns here. And I know I have the attitude, you've heard me, you're going to hear me say it, especially when Bob comes back. This is the team that does the worst out of the 3, so we can't give them as much love. I mean, we got to give them love. But I do recognize that, and Jimmy Haslam recognized, he said a 5-win season is just not going to do it for our fans, and he took personal responsibility. While we were on break here, I was looking up and a report was coming out because now some truths are gonna come out now that a certain person or two is gone. I say two because D Podesto's been gone too. He left for the Rockies job. Colorado Rockies baseball job. And he was the one that really pushed to hire Stefanski in the first place too. And again, it wasn't a bad hire. It just after a while some decisions were made, and I think I do think when a new head coach comes in, there's a certain attitude the first couple years, and then once they've settled in, I think then they try to push for a way that is hopefully going to be a winning formula and a play calling structure that is theirs that's going to work consistently. And I think he kind of overthought some things. And to describe what I'm talking about, this guy was a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner, 2020, 2023. When he was with Minnesota as a coordinator, they were top 10 in running and passing and overall offense. Every year they got better. They actually got top 5 in both running and passing before he left for the Browns job. Okay? And that's what intrigued the Browns. It's like every year they were consistently better and better. Statistically, analytically, this is the guy that makes sense now. That was the logic at the time. Okay. With Cleveland, he never had a top 10 offense. He multiple times had a top 10 defense with Jim Schwartz, but he never had a top 10 offense. Never. And did the play calling the most of the 6 years. Okay. He had the third best run game in 2020, won Coach of the Year. He had the 9th best run game in 2023, won Coach of the Year. You see the pattern here? He was brought in for run game and play action, opening up the field. And he went away from the run game, I would say, the majority of his term here in Cleveland. In 2020, it worked great. In 2023, they had to run a little bit more because of injuries. Watson goes down, then DTR goes down, and then you have Joe Flacco. So it's like, okay, Flacco does not use his legs. He's in the pocket, so he's got to hand the ball off. And then, with that being said, the running game does well with Ford and Hunt that year, and opens up the play action. Then, the last 2 seasons, and I'll say this season what made it tough was the offensive line was not very good, but Judkins did run the ball well for the most part. He did step away a little bit from the run game when he should have embraced it more and prepared for it more. What I was saying about the truths that come out, a report surfaced shortly after he was fired. Somebody asked him about the Watson trade, and he said he did not want to make that trade. He did not think it was a good idea. So that comes out now that he was not in favor for that trade there. So Jimmy Haslam was in favor for that trade. Even if you don't like Andrew Barry and you want to credit him for that, Barry made a strong pitch. He turned it down. He didn't want to come to Cleveland. It was Haslam that said, call them back, offer them this, the picks, the money, and everything. Okay? So there you have it. So he didn't want the Watson deal there. So moving forward, what should the Browns be looking at? Because there's people that said, we need an offensive guy, we need a defensive guy. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. One thing to look out for is maybe they take a little time. They don't rush this decision, take a couple weeks, because, one, with the Ravens losing last night, John Harbaugh might become available. Possibly. It hasn't come out yet. What they decide to do there, and they said the Browns might be interested there. In the case the Bills lose this weekend, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Sean McDermott might be a surprise fire. That's come up. They said it's unlikely, but you never know if he gets the they play Jacksonville. Jacksonville was the second seed in the AFC this year. They were the bet. They are standings wise the better team right now. You don't know what's going to happen there. So maybe look into that. Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins, his name's come up. It sounds like the Dolphins are going to keep him. They're saying there's no hint or there's no reports coming out that they're debating firing him. Okay. as far as other names go, we'll see. I've heard of Mike McCarthy brought up. That might not be a bad one. One approach, because I've heard some guys say we have to do offense, to fix the offense, to keep Schwartz and all this. Look, I like Schwartz, and again, I mentioned before break, Schwartz and Reese are candidates to get promoted and be head coach for the Browns. That's come out of Barry's mouth. So those are the first two nominees that we know of to replace Stefanski, okay? I like Schwartz, but you have to understand, there's other good defensive coaches. In the comparison I made, I just talked about it in the last segment about the Eagles. That's a prime example. Schwartz helps win a Super Bowl for the Eagles as D coordinator, okay? Pedersen is out. Sirianni brings his new guys in, okay? Gannon comes in, does an incredible job. Just as good, if not better than Schwartz, mind you. Gets a head coach job with the Cardinals. He's just been fired, okay? Gannon gets replaced by Fangio, who I guess is up for head coach candidacy again. He used to coach the Broncos, and he was consistently okay. But he might be one of those guys. He's a better coordinator than head coach. But I guess, he'll think about it. They've won a Super Bowl with him. Okay, so he's done just as good, if not better, than Schwartz and Gannon. My point being, as long as you got the players in the right coach, it's going to work out. So I like Schwartz. I really, really do. Don't get me wrong. But if we get a different guy that comes in and wants to go a different direction as D coordinator that thinks it's going to be a better fit in Cleveland, do it. I personally don't want to switch to the 3-4 defense because I've heard of names like, his name is Brian Flores from the Vikings, D coordinator. He used to be a head coach of the Dolphins. I like Flores a lot. Maybe the most underrated coach in the Bill Belichick tree. Okay? And he didn't get along with the Dolphins ownership and front office. That's why he got fired. He won over there. Winning was not a problem for him. My issue is I think this defense is built for the 4-3. You have to keep the 4-3. You switch to 3-4. Myles Garrett is probably going to go to outside linebacker. And it's going to be a weird... He could do it. Don't get me wrong. But it's just going to be weird. I like the 4-3 in this current defense. I think it's set up for... You got great defensive tackles that fit the scheme. You got great defensive ends on the outside of Myles Garrett that fit the scheme. Myles gets to sit down for a couple plays against Cincinnati, take a breather because he's trying to... It's the stress about beating the record, which he did. And the defensive lineman that replaced him had no problems with the keeping the pressure on Burrow. You got a good thing going. And on top of it, you have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah potentially coming back next year. If he doesn't, I think he's done for good. But they didn't want to risk it this year, so they shut him down. He had that neck injury a year ago. And then you have Martin Emerson coming back as well. All right? Hopefully you'll have Devin Bush back. Hopefully you'll have David Njoku back. Those are some of our key free agents. But at the same time, this defense, there's a lot to look forward to, and I think the 4-3 is just the way to go. So you got to bring somebody in that's going to keep the 4-3. Okay, that's my opinion there. One example I talked with friends about was the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, Seattle lets Pete Carroll go. It was just time. It was nothing personal, as you know. Pete Carroll just got fired by the Raiders, but they saw the best out of that situation, moved on from him. What does Seattle do? They go, our strong point of the team is the defensive side of the ball. We won a Super Bowl 10 years ago because of the defensive side of the ball. Let's go out and get a defensive coach. So they hired Mike McDonald, former defense coordinator of the Ravens. It was the right hire. They're going to the playoffs for the second straight year. They look good. So after the first year, though, they said, hey, we need to help this team. We have a good thing going on defense. We'll add to it. But we need to revamp the offense. We need the offense to be just as good as the defense if we're going to go anywhere. They go out and they get Sam Darnold. They get Cooper Kupp. They trade for Shaheed at the deadline, the wide receiver from the Saints. And because they had the O-line, they had the running backs, and things got better. They did draft Jackson Njigba Smith as well. It was a couple of years ago, but it was still a fit. They were trying to get the offense to meet up with the talent of the defense. That might not be a bad route for the Browns to go. Get a defensive-minded head coach, because that's your strong point. Build on the offense. Again, they're talking about Barry investing into a lot of money into the offense this next year. And yet, I will say it before anybody else does, keep the quarterback room the same. Yes, I'm dead serious. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and with Deshaun Watson, at least keep Sanders and Watson. Make Sanders show you he's the future, he's the QB1. They've proven you can win with the guy, okay? With Watson, a healthy Watson with a different offense there, might work out. Call me crazy. He's there for one more year. He can mentor Shedeur a bit. He's already been mentoring the kid, okay? If you want to trade Gabriel, there are teams interested. Flip it for a mid-round draft pick or something. And there are some good veteran quarterbacks that would fit the backup role. And just have another vet. Even if you want to bring back Jacoby Brissett, go ahead. He did not look terrible with the Cardinals. If and just keep a room like that. Don't draft a guy. That's all I'm asking. Do not draft. Make sure to show it. And if Shedeur's not the guy, 2027 QB class is loaded. Go pick a quarterback for the when you have multiple. We're going into this upcoming draft. They have the 6th overall pick. Okay. The top quarterback. It's Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. He's probably going to. I would put money. I don't gamble. I would put money he goes to Vegas. Yes, I would put money he goes to Vegas. That sounds funny, but I would. If I had to, okay? The rest of the quarterbacks expected to go in, just not worth taking in the first round. This class reminds me of the 2008 class, wherever Stanford came from. Matthew Stafford, because they came in and said, Stafford's a safe bet, like Mendoza's a safe bet. You draft him, you're getting a star-studded quarterback, okay? The rest, it was a hard sell. Yes, you can talk about Mark Sanchez going back to back-to-back AFC championships. They didn't go over the hump because he wasn't that good. He averaged 20 interceptions a year. He was a turnover-prone machine. His defense was amazing. I don't want that scenario. Give me, Shedeur has showed some spunk. He has shown some potential. The players like playing with them. Let him prove himself. You got a guy that was supposed to be a first-round quarterback in the 5th round. Maybe we got a steal here. Give him a good line and give him enough good weapons. Let's see it. He led a game-winning drive yesterday that set up for a Schmidt game-winning field goal. Okay? There's something there, is what I'm trying to say. As far as the rest of the team goes, most of the defense is there. I like what we have at the defensive line. If you bring back Devin Bush, if you want to get depth at linebacker, I'm talking about backups here, get that. I think that if the glaring hole is get another safety with Delpit, because we've had a rotation of strong safeties. If Caleb Downs goes in the draft and falls to you, you might have to take him. He is very good. I think here's my bold prediction for the draft early. We'll know within weeks. Ohio State did lose. We haven't talked about it yet. I think the majority, if not all, the Ohio State juniors are going back to Ohio State next year. And that's going to hurt the draft quality because most of it was Ohio State star-stud players. So I think that includes Caleb Downs. So if he's not available or he's not at the board at all, you're talking about a whole different situation. But I say go get a long-term starter next to Delpit. The other thing is get more depth at cornerback. I like Tyson Campbell. Of course we like Denzel Ward. He's another pro. Your Pro Bowlers this year are Ward and Garrett. I see Bitonio joining that if an O-lineman goes down in the playoffs or in Super Bowl, if when the O-lineman is going to the Super Bowl and decides to sit out. I see that there. But get more depth at cornerback. Emerson's coming back, so hopefully he stays healthy. Because if you have Emerson, Campbell, and Ward, oh my gosh, you're shutting everybody down. That's it. For offense, get another wide receiver. I don't care what you do with Judy. If you want to give him another chance, fine. If you want to trade him, fine. But I have mixed feelings about him, okay? I like Bond. I like Corley. I like Tillman when he's healthy, okay? But you need to, I would say, get 2 good wide receivers out of the draft. Either one of your first-round picks and then one, like your third-round pick or something. Even your second round. That's been work. Drafting wide receivers high tends to work. Okay, and then you're gonna have to revamp that whole offensive line. I like Weipler as the starting center. Um, I like Tevin, who was starting right guard for a while there. He's supposed to replace Joel Bitonio there. If Bitonio comes back or not, that hasn't been said. I'm suspecting he's going to retire. I just don't see it. He played so well this year, but his body's wearing down. If he comes back, that's great. But yeah, I'm pulling that up right now. Yeah, I like Weipler as the starting center. He went down with injury yesterday. Tevin Jenkins, that's who I meant. Zach Zinter, the case is still made for him. You gotta remember, Joe Bitonio was irrelevant his first 3 years with the Browns. He was either hurt or a backup, like Zinter was. And then he comes out and he has a Hall of Fame career. So the case is still made for Zach Zinter there. You got to get 2 new tackles. Okay, Conklin's a free agent. Forget about. DeJuan Jones, I love the dude. He's always hurt. You need to make him work for it. If he's got to be a rotating backup, fine. But you're going to need to get 2 new tackles. You got to protect the court. This offensive line's got to be better. I mean, I want to see Def out of the butt for the Browns at offensive line. They did a little bit better with Def this past year, and that's why they held on to the skip by the skin of their teeth. You got to remember, the offensive line, while it was not great this year, it was better than last year. Last year was bad. It was very bad. We're not too far. I would like to see, again, Njoku return with Fan in there. I think a loaded tight end room would help. But, I mean, if you get the right coach and the right pieces, it's going to work. I spent 2 segments talking about the Browns. We'll talk about college football and the Cavs in the next segment, and I'll make fast NFL playoff predictions. But, yes, sorry, guys. There's a lot to do here, but I'm done talking about the Browns for a while. We'll talk about the Browns next week when we get more coaching candidates. But I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about everything else. All right, welcome to our last segment here at 10 Cent Beer Night here at FitDimensionRadio.com. I'm Seth, and hopefully we'll have Bob next week. He is getting better. He's a little sick. Hold on, speaking of sick, I'm not sick, but I needed to cough. There, that Red Bull went down the wrong pipe. Cavaliers, while we were on break, went 5-3. Not bad. They had a lot. Evan Mobley came back early. He came back on Christmas. Jared Allen has come back. Sam Merrill has come back. Larry Nance Jr. has not come back yet. That's one of the few there that has not come back. And they've overall played well. Here's what we missed. Just a quick run through. Since our last 10 Cent Beer Night on December 22nd, they went back-to-back games against the Hornets and Pelicans. I was there for the Pelicans one. They looked like themselves again. And that was the feeling leaving the stadium that night. Was they looked like the team we knew that they can be. So that was a good look. Thursday on Christmas, they lost to the Knicks by 2. That was disappointing because the most of the game they played very, very well. I remember since I watched the whole thing on Christmas, sitting there going like, man, you know what? They're playing really well in front of the national audience. And then they kind of just blew it there. So again, they lost by 2. They need to bounce back there. They lost to 17 by the Rockets. They were down by, I think, 40 at a time. I'm not joking. It was bad. So Rockets have swept the Cavs officially. Then they take the turn for the better, okay? On December 29th, national televised game, they beat and swept the Spurs 113-101. So they beat the Spurs both times to play them. And both teams, their best players were healthy, okay? So they beat the Spurs at their best, and I mean, they played well. Everything that they needed to do, not just to win the game, but everything you're supposed to do as a pro basketball team, they did that night. Boxing out, the rebounding, the passing, the shot decision-making, which has been a nightmare for them this year. Inconsistent, I should say, not a nightmare. That's a little over-exaggeration. Okay. They did, and that's how they won that game there. And then on New Year's Eve night, they beat the Suns, their former assistant coach Kevin Ott, 129-113 there. Then the winning streak continued. Friday, January 2nd, their first game of 2026. They beat the Nuggets 113-108. The thing that concerned me about that game, the Nuggets did not have Nikolai Jokic. He's out for about a month with a hyperextended knee injury, okay? They didn't have him, and the Cavs only won by 5. Nothing is. The Nuggets are a very good, very talented, smart team. But I thought without Jokic there, the Cavs, and how good the Cavs are below the basket, they would step it up there. Well, Kenny Atkinson did call out Evan Mobley after that game and challenged him, which is good. Because he needed a challenge. He needed a wake-up call there. Sunday, while their co-owner, Myles Garrett, was beating the sack record, they lost to the Pistons 110-114. They should have won that game. I was flipping between the Cavs and the Browns game. I did not want to miss Myles Garrett winning the sack record, so if it wasn't for that, I may have watched the majority of the Cavs game instead. But what the parts I did see against the Pistons, here's the formula that's been working for the Cavs this year, okay? In the first half, drive to the basket, try to get points inside, specifically Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and even some of Donovan Mitchell there, but attack the inside throughout the first half, okay? The second half, continue to try to attack the inside, but find the wide open outside shots and then start taking them and get in rhythm. That formula right there tends to be how they're winning games, okay? When they're not winning games like Sunday's game, okay? They were just taking 3 after 3 early on, getting out of rhythm, getting upset with themselves. And by the way, taking bad threes. Like them being covered, like a guy right on them and taking the 3. To find the wide open 3. That's the Hornets game I told you. They looked like themselves. Sorry, Pelicans, not Hornets. The Pelicans game, I saw that they looked like themselves. That's what they were doing. Moving the ball inside. And then the second half exploded with good threes. And when I mean good threes, I mean they were wide open shots they took and started hitting, okay? Nobody covered. They moved the ball just enough to find the wide open guy. That's the stuff they gotta be doing. You do that consistent. As long as you're if you miss a good shot, there's nothing you can do but take another good shot, okay? But if you start taking bad shots, it's going to mess up the whole team rhythm, and it's not going to be good. So that's what happened there. So this week's games, by the way, so overall a very successful holiday campaign by the Cavaliers. Again, going 5-3 there. This week's games here. By the time you hear this will be already played and done. But Tuesday they play the Pacers in Indiana. They're 2-0 against the Pacers right now. So that would be on FanDuel. But again, it'll be too late by the time you hear this. Thursday they play back-to-back games. Okay, this week they play back-to-back games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, and so Thursday the 8th they're at Minnesota. And these will be challenging games. Minnesota's good this year. 8 p.m. on FanDuel, and then Saturday will be a 1 o'clock game on Amazon Network at Cleveland there. And then Monday's game before our next 10-cent beer night there will be against the Jazz at home, and yours truly will be there for that one. And that's when they're having a special for the Jazz game and the Timberwolves game. Okay, so the 10th and the 12th. $95 at the team shop. Gets you a Myles Garrett sack record bobblehead and shirt. Yes, he's a co-owner of the Cavs, so they can do stuff like that. But yes, they're running a special for Myles Garrett there. So not because he's number 95. $95 gets you the bobblehead and the shirt. So they are doing specials on tickets for those games. So right now they are 20 and 17th, and they're 8th in the Eastern Conference. They are how many games behind? They're 7 games behind the Pistons, who are 26 and 9. Yeah, so beating the Pistons would have helped. Still plenty of ball to go, but they got to show up. This is going to be a very tough January for them. You look in the Western Conference, the Timberwolves are 6th at 23 and 13. The Pacers are last in the East at 6 and 30. Yeah, the Pacers are going for the first overall pick now. And again, that could be a problem when Halliburton's all the way healthy next year. I mean, even the Celtics, who are banged up, are in 3rd place right now. So Cavs just got to get it together. There's still plenty of time here, but I mean, I don't expect a big trade or anything like that fancy coming in. But if things don't get better, you're going to see a move or two made. I just don't think it's going to be anything big like some people are trying to sell there. While we were on break, okay, the following games were played in NCAA football. Ohio State lost to Miami 24-14 there. You had, let me see, Oregon destroyed Texas Tech 23-0. Bama got destroyed by Indiana 38-3. Indiana is the first team in the 12-team playoff era to have a bye in the first round and win in the second round. The other teams have not done that, and that includes Georgia lost to Ole Miss 34-39. And some people are saying maybe we have to do away with that. I say no. And my Buckeyes lost. Okay, I'm saying no because if you are the best, you got to prove it. And you're telling me 2 weeks of rest brings you down? That doesn't make sense to me. You're rested up. You're prepared. Yeah, I mean you're not as fresh on the on the field, but you still have your team. You're a good team. You're a good roster. If you are the best and you earn the bye, you should be taking it. Indiana figured it out. Why can't you? So that's why it opens the door to show who was truly best in college football this year. Unfortunately, our Buckeyes were not. Okay. And speaking of our Buckeyes, I meant to make this point in the last segment, and it is the last thing I'll say about concerning the Browns. Buckeyes have an O coordinator position open, okay, because Hartline went and took a head coach job elsewhere to University of South Florida, okay. That being said, watch out. If Tommy Reese does not get promoted by the Browns, he could be headed to Ohio State. I'm dead serious. He was very much in consideration for the Penn State head coach job and the Michigan head coach job. Okay, there's interest in college football to give this guy a big opportunity. He did, I think, overall well play calling for the Browns. I can see him doing it for the Buckeyes. I'm just saying. I think he'll be considered. Chip Kelly went to Northwestern, so he's not coming back to Ohio State. All right. So your games there this week, Thursday, January 8th, the semifinals of the Fiesta Bowl. Number 10, Miami at number 6, Ole Miss. Miami favored by 3.5 points. Friday, January 9th, we have a big Big Ten showdown. The Peach Bowl, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. Number 5, Oregon at number 1, Indiana. Indiana favored by 4. Winners go to the national championship. That's going to be very interesting there. For your MAC, okay, because we had some MAC bowl games here. All right. The MAC overall went 1-3, 2-3 in bowl games this year. We'll start week 17. We met Myrtle Beach Bowl. Western Michigan beat Kennesaw State 41-6. Okay, and then Toledo lost to Louisville in the Boca Raton Bowl 27-22. Toledo had to get a new head coach, by the way. I did see that. Their head coach took the UConn job. At the Frisco Bowl, Ohio U beat UNLV 17-10. So that was the last one for the MAC there. Northwestern beat Central Michigan in the game above Sports Bowl 34-7. And then Miami, Ohio lost to Fresno State 18-3 in the Arizona Bowl there. So MAC did all right. Even in their losses, they overall did all right. For your Big Ten games, I mean, outside the ones that are in the playoff, I mentioned Northwestern beat Central Michigan, so that was one. Minnesota beat New Mexico in the Rate Bowl 20-17. Penn State beat Clemson in the Pinstripe Bowl 22-10, so that was a good win for Penn State there. Illinois beat Tennessee in the Music City Bowl 30-28. USC lost to TCU 30-27 in the Alamo Bowl there. Iowa beat Vanderbilt in the Real Quest Bowl 34-27. Michigan lost to Texas in the Citrus Bowl 41-27. Utah beat Nebraska 44-22, beat them up in the Las Vegas Bowl there. So overall, the Big Ten did okay as well. A couple big losses there, but it is what it is. And of course, we have another bowl game revolving 2 Big Ten games coming up there. So overall, bowl season's coming to an end. It makes you sad, but it all has to come to an end so baseball can start up again. We're gonna hold off on I don't have a lot of time for baseball talk today. We'll wait till Bob comes back and we'll talk about the big transactions that happened over the holiday break and the moves to Guardians Den and all that. The top players in the market, though, are still on the market. So that's going to be interesting there of how that pans out. For your men's basketball, for Akron, since our break there, they beat Eastern Michigan on December 19th. They went 2-1. They beat Eastern Michigan on December 19th, 93-72 at home. Then on December 29th, they beat Concord at home 115-64, just a blowout there. Saturday, January 3rd, they went into Miami of Ohio, played so-so. And remember, this is the team they met in the MAC championship last year in the tournament. They lost 73-76, so one got away from them there. This week, there are 2 games. By the time you hear this, Tuesday's game will be done. That is Central Michigan at home at 7 p.m. And then Friday, they're at Bowling Green, 8 p.m. on CBS Network there. So look out for the Zips there. But a lot of milestones. One Zip player getting 1,000 points. John Gross getting his 800th win. He joins Keith Dambrot and, what's his name from West Virginia? Bob. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot his name. But yeah. Bob, what's his name? You used to coach. Let's see. He's no longer there. Bob Huggins. Yeah, who was with West Virginia. They're the only 3 Zips coaches to ever win 800 games in their career. So, not just with the Zips either. That includes other teams as well. But congrats to John Gross for making that achievement there. Which, by the way, speaking of achievements, Myles Garrett gets the sack record, and there was a delay in the game for him to celebrate. Zach Taylor of the Bengals was very upset by that. Dude, they do this in all sports. When there's a monumental record breaker moment, they always give a pause in the game to give recognition. It happens in all sports. How did you not know that was going to happen? You're a head coach of a pro football team. You know that better than anybody else. You should. And that gave your chance for players to rest and strategize your next move. You could have taken advantage of that delay. Come on, dude. Seriously. Anyway, back to basketball. Okay. Ohio State, since our last 10-cent beer night, went 2-1 as well. On Saturday, December 20th, they lost to number 12 North Carolina 70-71. Oh, great game. Great game. Just fell short there. On Tuesday, December 23rd, they beat Grambling State 89-63, so a beat down there. Friday, they went back into a Big Ten play, and they beat Rutgers in New Jersey 80-73. This week, well, you'll know the result by the time you hear this, but Monday today, they're going to be on Fox Sports 1. They play number 10 Nebraska, so that will be a test. Thursday on the 8th, they're going to play Oregon at Eugene there, 10:30 p.m. on Big Ten Network. And then Sunday, they're going to stay out there in the Pacific West because Sunday the 11th, they'll be at Washington. That game will be on Peacock at 6 p.m. there. So more games for Ohio State, but this is where, ladies and gentlemen, I say this 4 times a year, but I'm going to say it here. We're entering one of the most exciting times in sports. NFL playoffs. We didn't get to predictions. Actually, if I could do it real quick, we can do it. But NFL playoffs, college basketball, conference play, and in the NBA, the schedule starts heating up a little bit more there. So, real quick, wild card round for the NFL. Saturday, January 10th on Fox, 4:30 p.m. Rams Rams at Panthers. Congratulations to the Panthers. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs this year. I got the Rams winning. They are favored by 10.5 points. 8 p.m. on Amazon Network. We have the Packers at the Bears. Bears favored by 1 point. I think that's fair. Give me Bears by 3. I do think Chicago is going to beat Green Bay there. And then Sunday, January 11th, 1 p.m., CBS and Paramount Plus. We have the Bills at the Jaguars. Jaguars are the third best team, not the second in the AFC there. Bills favored by 1.5. Give me Jaguars by 6. I said it, upset against Buffalo, and then people are going to be asking, what does Buffalo need to do in the offseason to take the next step there? 4:30 p.m. on Fox, you have the San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles favored by 3.5. Give me Philly by 10. 8 p.m. on NBC, you have the Chargers at the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 3.5 points. Give me New England by 5. And then 8 p.m. on ABC, Monday, January 12th, you have the Houston Texans at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Houston favored by 3.5 points. Give me Houston by 9. And I really hope C.J. Stroud beats up on Pittsburgh there. It would be great to see the Pittsburgh playoffs losing streak continue. So there you have it there. All right, guys, I'm out. That's all I have. Next week, we'll have Bob back. We'll talk about how the high school basketball season's going. We'll talk more about the Cavs. We'll talk about the MLB hot stove. We'll talk about the Zips and Buckeyes basketball teams. And then we'll talk about who is going to play in the national championship for college football. And then we'll talk about NFL football playoffs as well. That and more. I'm Seth. Thank you, guys. And let's see. Who do we pick on? Go Cavs! That's who we have left as far as pro teams go. So go Cavs this week. Let's ramp it up, and because that's all who Cleveland has for a while until spring training in February. And Bob's gonna be wanting to talk about that when he gets back. So that and more. So stay tuned. With that being said, go Cavs. You guys take care. Be careful out there. There's disease. There's slippery roads. All kinds of stuff. But as long as we're careful, we'll have a very fun winter season. All right, I'm out.